cyber insurance and cyber resilience are two different things, two different products that are today combined into one product because they don't serve the same purpose. Cyber insurance is covering the customer for financial impact, but it's already too late, and that's why cyber resilience is needed, because cyber resilience is covering the reputational impact, right? So to prevent the incident to happen. So it's always better to prevent it to happen.
One very fun fact that we discussed earlier is that you started your career as a dance teacher, which I think is probably one of the most unconventional ways of getting into cyber. I haven't heard anyone doing something like this before.
Yeah, so yes, that's correct. I was practicing exactly acrobatic rock and roll. And I was passionate by rock and roll, and I'm still passionate by rock and roll. And you're going to see that there is a strong, I would say, link between that and CISO. And I will explain it later.
So our previous guest asked the question that is, what jobs would you not want to see AI do in the future? And which kinds of work do you think should remain human-led versus AI-driven?
I believe AI is a great tool. It brings knowledge, but it brings universal knowledge. So when you ask AI, you always have a universal answer. And we are lacking basically the substance. We are lacking the difference that make us human, right? Because I would answer a question differently that maybe you would answer, and maybe some of my colleague or family would answer. And this is the beauty of being human, not being perfect, having a different mind, a different way of thinking, a different way of answering things.
Hi, Vivien. Welcome to Be Fearless podcast.
Hi, Sasha. I'm very happy to be part of that podcast today.
Yeah, I'm super excited for our conversation. I would love to introduce you to our listeners. You've spent nearly 2 decades building and leading in cybersecurity across very regulated industries in Europe. Today, you help global clients to quantify and transfer the cyber risk. And one very fun fact that we discussed earlier is that you started your career as a dance teacher, which I think is probably one of the most unconventional ways of getting into cyber. I haven't heard anyone doing something like this before. And I'm super excited to hear how this unconventional cyber journey led you to where you are today. So I think this is a good place to start. Like, how did you become a dance teacher before you ended up joining Jeunet National in France?
Yeah, so yes, that's correct. I was practicing exactly acrobatic rock and roll. And I was passionate by rock and roll, and I'm still passionate by rock and roll. And you're going to see that there is a strong, I would say, link between that and CISO. And I will explain it later. So, so I was dancing every day. It was discipline. It was passion. But of course, you don't make much money by doing dancing. So my parents told me, you have to find something that is a bit normal, right? So that's why I decided to work for the gendarmerie, so for the police army in France. I was reservist, so I was doing it during the weekend, during the evening, just to bring support. And I ended up working for the direction of the gendarmerie in Paris.
Oh, okay. That's all out of sudden. Did someone... So was it mostly your parents that led to this influence for you to join this in the first place?
Yeah, so I joined dancing because it was a dream of my mother to be a dancer when she was a kid. So that's why I did dancing, because she was working for a dance teacher herself. So she was an accountant for a dance teacher. And that's why I decided to do dancing. But my father, on the other hand, had a strong connection with the police army. So at one point, I said, okay, mother, I follow you now. I have to follow my father. And this is where I learned cybersecurity, basically.
So when you said at the very start that there is a very strong link between, doing rock and roll and being a CISO, what is this link? I'm just curious how those two can even be connected.
So when I was at the gendarmerie, it was discipline, right? So before doing cybersecurity itself, you have to follow the military, your military training, right? And I learned to track criminals on peer-to-peers. I like to do forensic on laptop of pedophile and so on. So it was crazy. But I learned discipline, and that was great. And why dancing helped me? Because to be CISO, in my humble view, it's a multitask, right? So people think that this is purely technical, but in reality, this is for me 50% strategy. So this is discipline, this is tactical, right? So the gendarmerie play a part here, but it's also 50% politics. You need to be heard in a company. You need to navigate. You need to dance in a company. And this is where the artistic part is playing a role, in my humble opinion.
Well, I think that's actually a frequent question that's being asked is, can I be purely technical and excel at being a great CISO? But I love that combination that you brought up. You have to be 50% technical and 50% actually almost like a politician in your company, to make sure people follow you.
Yeah, because really, so if people think that CISO is purely technical, they will never become CISO, because this is not at all technical. This is really a position at the C-level. You discuss with people at the C-level, and you need to be really political. So you need to have these skills, soft skills, that are, I would say, more important than the technical skill themselves. Sometimes it's better to know less, but to present it better, than to know a lot and to not be able to be listened at, right? So that's what I learned with the time, because before I really saw that it was technical. So I learned, penetration testing, even in the 90s, right? I learned a lot of development, stuff like that. I saw that the job was like that, but not, it's not. Yeah.
And you quite excel when you were at the National Defense by getting a medal during your time there. Maybe tell us a little bit more about your experience and how it in a way shaped your approach to security.
Yeah, so I got the medal because I was volunteer to be a reservist for the gendarmerie. And basically, it taught me dedication. And I realized that basically in cybersecurity, this is dedication. You need to have a passion for it. If you want to succeed, you need to love it, right? So, so this medal is just like, I would say, the symbol of like the trophy that I had when I was champion of France for acrobatic rock and roll, right? So I had the trophy of rock and roll, and just close to that, I have a medal for the gendarmerie.
Yeah, I really loved how you almost equate these industries and achievements on both parts, and in a way how they able to help each other in a way and really help you excel. And you also held CISO roles across widely different industries, from hospitals during COVID to financial exchanges and right now global insurance. What's one lesson from one industry that completely changed how you approach security in another industry?
So I would say that in finance or in insurance industry, the goal is really to grow the business, to make money, basically. So cybersecurity is an enabler, right, to make them grow the business. In healthcare, when I was working for the hospital in Luxembourg, I learned that cybersecurity is for people. So it has a greater cause. And because thanks to that, you can protect the identity of the people that have, that are in the hospital, because we had also some VIP, but we had also some normal people, and they don't want to have their data leaked, especially if they have a special disease and so on. So you really protect the people, and cybersecurity can help them also via a connected device to be also healed. So at the end, for me, I tend to think that this human part is stating me now to say, look, this is the most important. You are saving people. And in reality, in cybersecurity, yes, today it's data leakage, this is ransomware, this is stuff like that. But in the future, with the emergence of OT and the OT attack, I believe that the human will be ultimately harmed, right? So we will kill human, right? We will hack the plane, we will hack the car, we will explode a power plant, or I don't know. So for me, human should be at the center always, right? Because it's also the human that are also clicking on the link, right? But this is what I learned, basically. Yeah. So to try to refocus on human.
And I'm just curious, as you're focusing more on human side, how does it help you to shape risks when it comes to insurance side? How do you approach it when it comes to risk analysis? Did it influence you in any way, the way you approach it?
Yeah, I think it shaped it because human are always the trigger in most of the case that we have. I think I think we need to start with awareness for the employees. That's always important, right? Everything starts with them. And it's also important to federate the human that decide about, say, cybersecurity as well, for the budget, for the strategy, and for everything. So I think human is present at different level of the strategy, right? Yeah. They are present when there is a threat coming. They are present when we have to decide for the strategy. So my approach in cybersecurity is really human-centric. And this is what we, at the insurance level, also think it's the most important to focus on, right? So we can discuss that later, but then we have, a questionnaire that we have for companies that want to be insured in cyber. And this is really centric on human. Yeah.
It might seem very straightforward. I would assume for many companies that it's human-centric, but human-centric has so many layers and so many definitions that it's you really have to go ahead and break it down probably under 50 more categories, what usually the human-centric really entails. And not many people may know this, but you're not just a traditional CISO. You're actually responsible at assessing and quantifying risk for clients. So tell us a little bit more about your current role at Zurich Insurance and the services that you lead. What do you think about the difference between cyber insurance and cyber resilience?
Okay, that's a big topic. So when I joined Zurich Insurance here in Switzerland, my main job was to support first the underwriters. So the underwriter are the people that are signing the risk for customer having a cyber insurance. And we were facing a problem. We were facing the problem that almost 50% of those customers that wanted to have an insurance were not able to get an insurance. We were not able to give them an insurance. And you know what? It's just because they don't have the sufficient maturity in cyber to get an insurance. Because for us, when we underwrite a risk, it's also a risk, of course, so we need to make sure that the customer have minimum, I would say, cybersecurity in place.
Yeah.
And this is complex. How to make them insurable, how to assess a multinational just with question and just in 1 hour. That's very complex, because normally when you assess cybersecurity for big company, it takes weeks, even months, right? Because it's present with multi-site, it's everywhere, it's very complex. So we had 500 questions. And when people were receiving these 500 questions, they were like, oh, wow, my God, it's it's really too much. So we were facing many challenges. Mm-hmm. Some customers were not insurable. Some customers were receiving 500 questions. It was too much for them, right? They have enough of the questionnaire. And third, it's a bit challenging, I would say, to insure everyone. So we were like, what can we do, right? So we tried to reduce this 500 questions, into 10. Is it possible? Is it possible to simplify 500 questions into 10? That's the challenge that we had. And then we decided to work with a very prestigious university here in Zurich that is called ETH. Mm-hmm. And at ETH University, we asked if we can find a student that can help us, through the master thesis to find a model that we can use. And this student basically worked for 1 year, and it's a she, right? She mapped basically the NIST control with the meter and attack framework and the claims data that we have, because the advantage that we have at insurance is to have the knowledge of what is happening for different industry, right? Mm-hmm. Or what was the control missing, because most of the incidents are not public, but they have to declare it to the insurance to get the money, right? So that's why we have a lot of data. And by mapping all those data, we realize that basically, yes, 10 control together can mitigate 70% of the attack. We were like, oh, wow, that's quite bold, right? And we made an article on that. So I encourage people that are interested to read that on the internet. Yes. So we found this 10 control that together can mitigate 70% of the risk. Mm-hmm. And I can even give a sneak peek of this control. They are not like crazy, but this is SOC. This is access control, right? And this is configuration setting, for example. Mm-hmm. And I will stop here. So like that, I encourage all the listeners. But yeah, so now when we are assessing the risk, we are basically focusing on that question. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned in your question, we are also quantifying. So it means that we translate the risk exposure into financial exposure. So we can tell a customer your ransomware exposure is not high, medium, or low, because when you say that, basically, everybody has a different scale, right? So nobody understands. But if you say that your exposure for ransomware is 20 million, so if something is happening, it costs you 20 million. And this is really a game changer for the customer, but also for us to understand if we can underwrite the risk or not.
Yeah, I think it's so beautiful to have access to so much data because, as you mentioned, you can really map out what is missing because the frequent problem when it comes to cyber is we know when an incident happened, but we don't know how it originated, what was the eventual cost to the company. And all of these steps are missing. And as you mentioned, it really enables you from the insurance side to create this framework. Okay, what needs to be added? And right now, we're approaching 2026. I'm sure a lot of companies are thinking right now, okay, I have to start preparing my budget for the next year. What are some of the controls that you would emphasize for companies to focus on? I know that you mentioned those basic controls. You mentioned 7 that have to be in place. What is number, I'd say 1, 2, and 3 that people perhaps miss or don't pay as much importance to, and which you would really emphasize to focus on?
So before answering that, I just make a link with the quantification, because with quantification, it helps the customer to know their financial exposure, but it helps them also to see what would be the exposure if they implement those controls. So, for example, for the control that I will mention, what if they implement access control? What if they implement SOC and so on? What is the cost of the product? And what is the return of investment of having that product? And sometimes the cost is very low compared to the return of investment that you have when you implement it. So saying that, for me, I would say it depends on the sectors, right? So different sector, different problem, different control are recommended. But for me, based on our experience, we see that the number one critical, I would say, blind spot that we have problem is mostly the OT, right? Operational technology. So this is something that for me is key. We need to monitor OT. So that would be my first control. And to monitor OT, there is a lot of tools that is existing on the market, and I would really recommend to do it. The second one is shadow IT, because we don't know what people are doing, right? Sometimes we block what we think they are doing, but we don't monitor what they are actually really doing. And with ChatGPT, with AI, and maybe we can talk about that later, it's very important that we are able to monitor this and block it, right? So shadow IT for data leakage is important. And third one, and here I have a problem because I have a third and a fourth. So I might have to say 4, but the third one is for me the coverage of solution, because people sometimes they have SOCs, they have EDRs, they have MFAs, they have PAM, but it's only for restricted perimeter. And this is not good, because then you face some blind spot with the side that you didn't cover, right? And this is always coming where you have the weakness. So the coverage is important, and the configuration. So if you implement a SOC, implement it fully, right? That's very important. EDR the same, right? Don't do half, do everything. Again, come with passion, go for everything. It's all or nothing. And the third and the fourth one would be third party, because a lot of our customers are facing problems due to third parties.
Yeah, I think when it comes to mapping, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone considers third party, but this is probably the risk that is in a way the hardest to mitigate, because you don't know 100% what's going on there. And on the shadow IT side, there are also, as you mentioned, you don't really know what people are using these days. You imagine them using one thing, but they might be using completely different. And I think one particular use case that comes to mind is extensions. Not many people right now are aware what kind of extensions people go ahead and download, use. Do you see it from the insurance standpoint as a use case that tends to come up as you work with different companies?
Yes. I this is really something that we see as a blind spot. But today, we have two kind of company. We have the companies that are already quite mature, so they start to implement these tools, and I think it's important to do it. But you have also some companies that are really far from maturity, and the basic are not yet there. No EDR, no SOC, no backup, and yeah, so we tend to have to kind of group, and for those who are still not yet mature, they have to start with the basic, and then the second group need to start with the deep dive data loss prevention, and especially with those tools that can block, I would say, the leak of data via AI.
Yeah. And when you mentioned the data leakage, from the perspective of ChatGPT, right? A lot of people go ahead and try to use it. Do you see it as something that companies right now actively go ahead and consider of having a certain insurance policy in place when it comes to this sort of AI-driven tools?
So I think this is something that is important. This is something that people are considering today. We have that in place already, also in Zurich for most of the part. So this is something that we really find important. Now, the policy regarding cyber is now taking in consideration, of course, AI. And that's why I discussed just before about the questionnaire about cybersecurity. Now we had to add few questions about AI, and part of those questions are basically this. Yeah.
So this is question number 11 after you summarized all the.
Yes, exactly. Because cybersecurity is fascinating because it started with technical, but then with technical you manage people because it's awareness, and then you have compliance, and then you have legal and regulatory. Yeah. So and now you have another domain on top of the hat, yeah. I would say, which is AI. So it's growing, and we start to reduce, but then it's growing. So there is an 11, 12, 13, and 14 question now.
And I think there is really an ongoing debate whether cyber insurance encourages complacency or actually improves security posture. Where do you stand on this? And what does Zurich Insurance do to ensure clients are generally building resilience and not just, relying for a big brother to come and save?
Yeah, that's a good point. But actually, cyber insurance and cyber resilience are two different things, two different products that are today combined into one product because they don't serve the same purpose. Cyber insurance is covering the customer for financial impact. So when it's too late, when the incident arises, and then you recover some of the money, right? But it's already too late, And that's why cyber resilience is needed, because cyber resilience is covering the reputational impact, right? So to prevent the incident to happen. So it's always better to prevent it to happen. And this is not what cyber insurance is covering. Cyber insurance is a risk transfer, right? And it's important, but it doesn't prevent the customer to work on his maturity and prevent basically a reputational impact or or I don't know, I would say problem with the market, right? So you lose market share if the reputation is harmed. So cyber insurance and cyber resilience are two different things. They serve two different purposes. Cyber insurance is coming into play when you have an incident, when it's too late and you need to recover from that incident. So it's basically covering the financial impact. Cyber resilience is coming in play when you want to prevent the incident to happen. So before, and the purpose of that is the reputational impact. So you don't want to have a reputational impact. So to make sure that you protect your company from the reputation, you need to build cyber resilience. If you want to recover from a financial impact, then yes, you need to have cyber insurance. So that's why today at Zurich we have cyber resilience and we have cyber insurance together. And I work very closely with my counterpart Andreas for the cyber insurance part.
Yeah, I was about to say you probably wouldn't be able to just choose one versus the other. You really have to combine those two offerings into one.
Yes. And it has some advantage on the market because if there is no minimum security, then there is no insurance for the customer. But if there is a security, there is also a better condition for the person who want to get an insurance, right? So in terms of premium and so on, of course, so yeah, they both work together.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about your personal experience when it comes to managing cyber incidents. I know that you managed crisis response and business continuity across multiple roles. So was there an instance when you had to lead an organization through an actual cyber incident? And what surprised you the most, how it unfolded?
So here I will come back again with the people as the first one, because the most difficult during a crisis is to manage people. And I will explain you why. Because in a crisis, you always have some, I would say, behavioral roles that are rising. You have the leader, the one that takes the leads, that takes the decision and so on, which is good, right? But if you are not prepared with that, there are multiple leaders, right? And then they are in conflict. Then you have the blocker. You have the one that is slowing down the decision, having a problem with everything, challenging everything, and then you cannot really decide. And then the crisis is still going on. Yeah. Then you have the alarmists. You have the one that is like amplifying, right, the problem, that say, oh, no, it's bigger than that, and so on. And then this is also a difficult person to manage. And lastly, I would say you have the firefighter. I would call it like that. It's a person that would jump on a fix without thinking about the global, I would say, perspective. So he will fix one part, but he will not think that there is a global picture, right? A strategy that we need to put in place. And this is complex because this is rising, especially when you have a crisis and you are not prepared. So that's why I really, really, really please all the CISO to really put a focus on business continuity management, because preparedness is really key. So if you are prepared, the role and responsibility are set up. So there is no problem. You know who decide, you know who can contribute, and you have a plan, right? What to do in this or this case. You don't have to overthink because you don't have time. And time is key in this kind of problem. And otherwise you bring confusion and you don't do decision. So based on my experience, yes, trainings, preparation, and especially framing the role of the people is really key.
It's almost if it requires you to be a psychologist on the spot that is forced to analyze the whole situation very quickly, able to give someone appropriate pill to manage the situation. It's
another hat of the CISO, yes.
Indeed. And I'm sure that it has to be also in certain way coming to you by nature, because not every day you're thrown into such incidents where you really have to decide on the spot. And there must be a lot of trainings to be able to have this very cool mind and being able to find your alarmist or firefighter in this group.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. You've also led teams across Europe, Asia Pacific, Americans. What's the hardest part about maintaining a consistent security culture across different regions? Because, culturally, these regions are so different, and the way they approach security, I'm sure, is going to influence in one way or the other. And also from regulatory standpoint.
So, yes, culturally, they are all different. I can make a parallel with personal life. I had, I was dancer, as we discussed before. I had a girlfriend who was also dancing. Mm-hmm. So we were like, oh, wow, that's great. So we can go along together. But the problem is that she's dancing salsa and bachata. I'm dancing rock and roll, right? So, and then you realize that it's different, right? You don't lead the same. You don't dance the same. And in cybersecurity, that's exactly the same. So you can do the same topic, can do cybersecurity, but you are dancing differently. And, in Asia, for example, or in Europe or in the US, I have different strategy. In Europe, we discuss too much for discussion, for example, because, and at the end, the decision that come at the end is outdated. So, for example, we can discuss about implementing an internal ChatGPT, right? And then by discussing it, it takes so much time that at the end, when you release a solution, when you have tested everything, you are out with ChatGPT version 3. And oh my God, we are ChatGPT version 5 or 6. And then, okay, so then it's completely outdated, right? That's Europe. I'm European. I can say that. In Asia, they trust the hierarchy a lot and apply strictly what the hierarchy is telling them. But sometimes we need to be also challenged to make sure that we are going to the right direction. And this is also very important to be challenged. So, but of course, hierarchy is also important. So a bit of Asian, a bit of Europe, and in the US or Latin America, especially in the US, I mean, they are great. They have a lot of product, right? It's some kind of, some of them are the leader in the industry. So it's very difficult to challenge them, to tell them, look, this is maybe what we should do or consider. And again, this is very psychology, right? So you need to discuss with them to say, no, yes, there is an American product that is great, but maybe there is also another alternative that could fit, right? And then when you have a meeting, right, between your colleague in the US, your colleague in Asia, your colleague in Europe, you see that, yeah, it's very, very complex to make them all work together. But again, with passion, with cybersecurity in mind, we always find a compromise. But yeah, that's the challenge. Again, the people. But we are all complementary at the end, right? We need a lot of thinking from Europe. We need a lot of, I would say, rigueur in French. We say so some kind of hard work and respect from the Asia, and we need also some strong solution from our colleague in the US. So at the end, that's why I love my job. International job is great. You learn from all of them.
Yeah, and cybersecurity is very much a global problem that a lot of
Of course.
to solve. So at the end of the day, everyone has, like in every story, like a common enemy that they're fighting against. So that's definitely something that unites many people together. One more topic that many CISOs discuss nowadays is it's not so easy to get a buy-in from executive boards when it comes to cyber risk. I know that you regularly engage with boards on these topics. What's your approach to transforming and translating technical risk into business language?
So here, cyber risk quantification is key, because with cyber risk quantification, you change the different risk into financial number, and they talk about financial number. So you need to talk with financial number. I remember when I was CISO for one of the company in Luxembourg, I will not say the name, but I came with my strategy to the board. I was quite confident. And then I said, look, we have a risk of data leakage that is quite medium. So we need to implement that. It will cause this. We need to, we have a problem with ransomware. We have a problem of monitoring and so on. And this is critical, and so on and so on and so on. And at the end of the meeting, they all look at me. They said, thank you very much, Vivien. Next topic. Then I realized they didn't buy it, right? They didn't really understand it. I went too technical. I went with high, medium, low, with color, and they don't know. They don't understand. So to discuss with the board, you need to simplify. You need to focus. You cannot manage everything. You need to select 1, 2, 3 topic. That's it. And all those 3 topic, you need to translate that into financial number. You said, okay, my risk for data leakage, for example, would be, I don't know, 30 million, right? This is 30 million to the company. This is the risk that we can face. And this is also calculating the reputational risk, because we are able, thanks to the claims data, so the knowledge of the attack, also the benchmark data that we have at the insurance side, to really calculate this. And to say, look, if you implement, I don't know, a tool to protect against data leakage, maybe the cost would be, I don't know, maybe 50K, maybe 100K. But what is 100K? If you can reduce your exposure that was 30 million to an exposure of just 1 million. Imagine, you reduce 29 million with just an investment of 100K. Then the board look at that and say, wow, that's what we have to do. So let's sign. So it's basically how you discuss with the board. You explain the return of investment. Cybersecurity should be an enabler, should be something that would help the company to grow, that would not cost money, but in the opposite, to save money. So I really, really, really encourage people to start to look at cyber risk quantification, because this is really a tool that can support discussion with the board, the strategy, justifying budget, prioritizing 1, 2, 3, prioritizing the control, and so that's what I would recommend.
I think this is a very powerful tool, because that is the struggle that many CISOs have these days, is how do I go about convincing, but because I think frequently on boards, they want to see the ROI immediately, but in a way, the ROI that comes from cyber investment is by not having this money lost. So it's in a way, it's calculated slightly differently, but the concept is the same. It's just, how do you not lose the money versus gain the money?
Yes.
But this is extremely powerful tool that a lot of people should really think about when they think what's the best way of communicating. Okay, we really do need this. And as you mentioned, focus on 2-3 key things. Don't overwhelm the board with the, five graphs, 10 graphs, compiling everything together. And also, if you could go back and give advice, let's say to your younger self, just starting out in security, what would you tell yourself?
I would say first, don't put too much air gum in your hair, otherwise you will lose your hair. And secondly,
personal experience.
I had hair like that, right? But then I still have hair, but it's just that, I put too much air gum into it. But the second thing I would say would be, don't focus too much on technical. Focus really on soft skill. Focus on communication. Focus on how you present the information, how you synthesize information. Focus simplifying everything, and don't go everywhere. Cybersecurity is super vast. It's like medicine, right? You can learn about network. You can work on systems. You can learn about databases, security, and cloud security. And it's super vast, right? You have compliance with a lot of things. When I was young, I learned a lot of things, too many things. But then you become like the technical expert with a lot of knowledge. But you lack the ability to present it efficiently, right? And this is very important. Sometimes better to learn less of technical skill, not focusing on certification, but focusing on how you present it. So communication, soft skill. That's what I would teach myself. Yes. And I would not change anything else, because I'm really happy with this career. I'm very happy with cybersecurity. I'm very grateful for all the companies that I've been working with, all the people that I met. And yes, all the CISO are different, and they are all artists, right? So I find myself in a perfect seat. Yeah.
Yeah. This is probably the best place to be. And with the development of cyber risk, this is a very exciting time to go ahead and help out people to map everything out and be able to pinpoint, okay, this is your struggle. It's time to address it. So this is very exciting time to be in this space. And Vivien, we also have this tradition on our podcast where previous guests would ask questions to the next guest. So our previous guest asked the question that is super relatable to today's struggles. It is AI related. And the question is, what jobs would you not want to see AI do in the future? And which kinds of work do you think should remain human-led versus AI-driven?
That's a good question. And I would say that to answer that, I would explain a little bit what I think about AI today. I believe AI is a great tool. It brings knowledge, but it brings universal knowledge. So when you ask AI, you always have a universal answer. And we are lacking basically the substance. We are lacking the difference that make us human, right? Because I would answer a question differently that maybe you would answer, and maybe some of my colleague or family would answer. And this is the beauty of being human, not being perfect, having a different mind, a different way of thinking, a different way of answering things. And for me, AI today is not able to replace position where human play a key role in the discussion and in the sharing his experience, in the experience sharing. So for me, CISO for the moment cannot be replaced by AI because you need experience. You need to think differently. And yes, AI is used by tool. So it's used also by hackers. Mm-hmm. But if in the middle, the way of hacking or the way of replying is the same, at one point, the hacker will always think that, okay, so we just have to change a bit the perspective and to act differently. And then your response will be crap, right? Because your response is universal. But if you are a CISO, you will always think that you have to reply differently. So for me, CISO is a perfect example of a job that cannot be replaced by AI, at least today.
Yeah. As you mentioned, it's so much of a strategic positioning, so much of a human-led understanding of what exactly is going on inside the organization, whether it's a moment of incident or not. It completely makes sense. What question would you like to ask to our next guest?
It's a good point, because I was thinking about asking the same exact question that I have been asked now. So I need to think about another one. But so the question that I would ask would be maybe regarding the geopolitical, I would say, cybersecurity. And I would ask, who are the leader of cybersecurity today in the, I would say, on the defense? Who are the most, I would say, threat coming from, according to the person? And if they think that the strategy should be the same, if it's coming from this country, if it's coming from that other country, or should we have today a different strategy according to different threat that we have? Yeah. So that would be my question. How CISO develop a strategy taking into account that cybersecurity is a geopolitical threat? Yeah. That would be my question.
I think it's very relevant to the point that you were discussing, how you're supposed to handle security, whatever geography you're in, whether you're in Europe, Asia, or America. But this is more of a defense side question, and very, very relevant. Thank you so much, Vivien, for this conversation. We've covered so many topics. And I think whoever listened to this podcast, whether they're someone junior and thinking of entering the space, they can really learn that they can start literally from any background, as wild as being a dance teacher. They can really go into this space because there is so much of new technology coming in, and your personal journey is a great demonstration of how it's really a lot about human-led and human psychology, how you respond to different situations under pressure, how you keep it cool, how you can really assess the risk, not just from the perspective of overwhelming the board, but more from how do I compress everything from 500 questions to 10 questions, and really create this simpler picture just for people to understand. I think this was so many learnings. I think not even for people who are younger and thinking of entering the space, but also someone who wants to make the leap into a leadership role from the mid-level. And I'm very grateful. Thank you so much, Vivien.
Thanks to you, Sasha. And I really enjoy our discussion today. And I would just finish by saying to all my CISO friends, be passionate, love your job, and keep rocking.